family of 15 people, and my parents are abusing. They abuse us, and my two little sisters right now are chained up.
It was just before dawn on January 14, 2018, in Paris, California. The suburban street of Muirwoods Road slept peacefully under a dark sky. Quiet. Still. Unaware that inside one of its beige, cookie-cutter houses, something unthinkable was unfolding. And then, a miracle. A girl climbed out of a window, barefoot, shaking, clutching a deactivated cell phone that had no data, but could still dial 911. She ran. She had never been outside alone before. Not once. Not in 17 years of life. But on this night, Jordan Turpin was on a mission to save herself and her 12 siblings. Welcome to the crime documentary.
Two little sisters right now are chained up. They're chained up on their bed.
How many of your siblings are tied up?
Two of my sisters, one of my brothers is chained up.
The dispatcher stayed calm, asking questions. Jordan struggled. She wasn't sure how old she was. She guessed 17. She didn't know the name of the street she lived on. She hadn't been allowed outside. She'd never talked to a stranger before. But still, she was doing it. For the first time in her life, she was free and trying to save the others who weren't. Just minutes later, a Riverside County Sheriff's deputy pulled up to the curb. Body cam footage shows him stepping out of the cruiser, approaching the girl, small-framed, thin, trembling. She's unsure, terrified she's going to get in trouble. But what she's about to reveal will shock the entire world.
Hi there. So you ran away?
Yes, because I live in a family of 15 people and my parents are abusive. My two little sisters are chained right now.
The officer begins to ask questions, softly, gently, trying not to scare her. Jordan speaks haltingly but honestly. She tells him about the chains, about the starvation, about the beatings. She says there are 13 children total. One is as young as 2. The deputy radios for backup. Nothing he's heard in his career could prepare him for what's coming. When officers enter the Turpin home at 160 Muirwoods Road, they are hit with a wall of stench. The home is silent. Still. It takes a moment for their eyes to adjust. Then they see it. 2 girls, thin, pale, shackled to a filthy bed. Nearby a boy, also restrained. And beyond that, more children, all malnourished, some of them adults who look like young teens, so stunted in growth that their real age was hard to believe. They had been hidden in plain sight. David and Louise Turpin, the parents, stood by silently as officers moved through the house. David said almost nothing. Louise tried to minimize it all. The children were homeschooled, she said. They're just skinny because they're going through a growth spurt. They're just skinny because they're going through a growth spurt. But the reality was far worse.
We have multiple minors, severely undernourished, appears to be ongoing abuse, requesting Child Protective Services on site immediately.
Word spread fast. By the next morning, the story had hit headlines across the globe. 13 children rescued from House of Horrors. The world watched in shock as the smiling, seemingly normal family from Facebook, coordinated outfits, Disneyland trips, matching hairstyles, was revealed to be a front. Behind the doors of that tidy suburban home was a nightmare, a hell constructed by the very people meant to protect those kids. This is the story of the Turpin family, a case so horrific, so baffling that it forced America to ask, how could this happen? How could 13 children suffer for decades and no one notice? How could an entire system fail them? Again and again. Over the next few minutes, we'll uncover how the Turpins kept their secrets for so long, the shocking cruelty they inflicted, and the courage it took to escape it. Because behind the viral headlines lies a tragedy far deeper and far more infuriating than most ever imagined. At first glance, the Turpin family seemed like any other American household. Smiling Christmas photos, matching outfits, coordinated poses. But behind the doors of their Perris, California home, a nightmare was brewing. And what the world would later discover defied logic, compassion, and even the most basic sense of humanity. David and Louise Turpin, high school sweethearts who had been married since the 1980s, were seen by neighbors as quiet, perhaps a little odd, but nothing alarming. But their choice of lifestyle, especially with their children, would raise quiet questions that no one ever truly pursued. Because behind those closed doors, their home was transforming into something monstrous. The children, 13 in total, were being subjected to unimaginable conditions, isolated, starved, shackled, deprived of sunlight, education, and basic human interaction. This was not a case of strict parenting. This was torture.
We're talking about prolonged psychological and physical abuse that went on for years. The level of control the parents had over their children was absolute.
From the outside, the Turpins kept up appearances. They dressed the kids in matching clothes, went to Disneyland, renewed vows with an Elvis impersonator. It was a carefully constructed illusion. But inside the house, the children were living in filth. Human waste on the floors, rotten food, chains. And yet, for years, no one noticed. No one asked questions. Until one brave girl changed everything. On January 14, 2018, just before dawn, a 17-year-old girl slipped out of a window. She was thin, malnourished, dressed in torn clothes. And she was carrying a cell phone that her parents didn't know she had. Her name was Jordan Turpin, and her mission, to save her brothers and sisters. What she did next would send shockwaves across the globe.
911, what's your emergency?
I just ran away from home, and I live in a family of 15 people, and my two little sisters right now are chained up.
The dispatcher was stunned. At first, they weren't even sure if the call was real. Jordan struggled to explain simple things. She didn't know the words for medication. She wasn't sure how addresses worked. Years of isolation had left her almost entirely unaware of the outside world. Police were dispatched. When officers arrived at the Turpin home, they were met with something straight out of a horror film. Children pale and frail, the stench of human waste, shackles on beds, empty pantries. And then, the truth began to unravel. What the officers found inside stunned even the most seasoned detectives. The children, ranging from age 2 to 29, were severely malnourished. Many couldn't speak properly. They were unsure of their own birthdays. Some thought police were robots sent to kill them. They were kept awake at night and slept during the day, their internal clocks completely distorted. The older children were skeletal, their growth stunted by years of starvation. One of the girls had an arm the circumference of a 4-year-old. David and Louise Turpin tried to claim that everything was fine, that the children were being homeschooled, that they had plenty to eat. But the truth was undeniable. It was one of the worst scenes I've walked into in my entire career. And still, questions lingered. How could this happen in a quiet California suburb? How could no one, teachers, doctors, neighbors, say anything for so long? The answer lay in a complex web of control, secrecy, and institutional failure.
The Turpin parents were arrested immediately, facing dozens of charges, including child abuse, torture, and forced imprisonment. In court, the children bravely testified. Jordan and her siblings described beatings, starvation, being chained to beds for weeks. They told stories of birthdays never celebrated, of food being withheld as punishment, of their desire to go to school, to just be normal kids. David and Louise eventually pled guilty to all charges. In February 2019, they were sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years, though few believe they'll ever walk free again. The courtroom was silent. Then, one of the older daughters stood up and spoke. "I cannot describe in words what we went through growing up, but that is in the past, and we are now taking our lives back." The rescue of the Turpin children sparked outrage and a movement. Donations poured in, offers to help flooded social services. The world wanted to help them heal, but recovery wasn't simple. In 2021, a shocking report revealed that several of the children were later placed in foster homes where they experienced further abuse. Some were denied access to their funds, others were kept in group homes with minimal support. It's heartbreaking. They escaped one horror only to fall into another broken system. Still, many of the Turpin siblings have shown incredible strength. They're attending college, holding jobs, learning to live. Jordan, in particular, has become a symbol of resilience, using her voice to advocate for change.
I want to say again, I'm truly sorry. I am forever.
The Turpin case forced America to ask hard questions. How did this happen? Who dropped the ball? Why didn't anyone intervene? It highlighted deep flaws in the systems meant to protect the vulnerable. Calls for reform followed, in child welfare, in homeschool regulation, in emergency response training. But many advocates say it's not enough, because the truth is, there are more houses like the Turpins, and there are more children still trapped inside. The Turpin children are survivors. What they endured is beyond comprehension. But their story is now one of courage and of hope. Their voices have broken the silence, their strength has inspired millions, and their legacy may just change the system for the better. This was the story of the Turpin family, the house of horrors, but also the house of survival. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more real crime stories, turn on notifications, because the next case might be even darker.